right. One of the things we've done is we've gone season by season, and I think one thing that we've talked about is that 1997 season. We've done up to 96. So this is your 10th season that you're entering, and we're just going to kind of preview a little bit, set the stage, because I think as we've talked, we could look at that from the standpoint of the regular season, what you went through, and then obviously looking back on it, um, every game you entered was a huge game. But even looking back historically, where you guys were kind of ranked, where the teams you were playing were ranked, um, it was kind of that underdog mindset and winning them, and beating some of these teams, just puts a little bit extra cherry on top, so to speak. And maybe even talking about those games and the lead up to the state championship singularly. So kind of some multiple episodes we've talked about spending a little bit more time on that piece. But just laying the groundwork for 1997. So you come off the 1996 season, the undefeated season. You have a number of players coming back. You lose in the first round, and as you said, you felt like 1996. If the ball bounces a different way, you felt like you potentially could have made that same run in 96 that you ended up making in 97 if things go right, talent-wise. What were the expectations leading into 1997 through the offseason and up until you start playing?
Well, hitting that undefeated season in '96, as you say, was really it was an unexpected time as far as um, where we were in the program achievement wise. We thought it would be a big year, but it wasn't till it started to become uh, visionable down the stretch that undefeated regular season,
Mm-hmm.
became a graspable, an achievable goal. Um, so, having finished that season and the way we did, although, you know, disappointingly, what happened at Fitch against Canfield in the first round of the playoffs, um, but it didn't dampen what the kids achieved as far as that year. Um, uh, uh, Certainly regular season. But going in to answer your question, going into '97, a lot of that puzzle, if you will, was coming back. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we had a big portion of that team coming back, and we were excited, and um, we were cautiously optimistic because what was real was the fact that East was growing in potential, and Leiden really had them playing at the top of their game, and we were looking at that as being a key showdown when that game occurred.
What do you what was Leiden doing a little bit different maybe than years past to get it? Was it just a good run of talent? Obviously, that's part of it. A key group, keeping some of those guys there. That let's be honest. I knew there were a lot of guys from the east side that ended up, over at Ursuline. I mean, that was especially at that time when the diocese was divided, right? There were a lot of those guys. Do you know of anything that he did to um, solidify some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. He was running he was running a real program. I mean, he was and this is not a blast on the coaches prior to him. Um, East always had a strong reputation, and they always had great talent. But Mark was putting together the pieces that needed to be done for the kids to gravitate towards. that offered a real program, especially in the weight room. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he was always a big proponent of the weight room, and his off-season program. I really believe, because him and I talked. Him and I talked in the off season, and he was interested in some of the things that we were doing, and I think he combined that with some of the thoughts that he had, um, and he really did put a good program in place.
Where was Leiden from? Do you know where he went?
I do, but I can't seem to recommend or recollect now.
Okay, South
Um,
Side guy maybe. Wilson, Mooney.
Wilson might
Okay.
be right, but I'm not sure because his brother. Um, you may be right as far as the South Side. He might have a connection with Demesco.
Yeah. Okay. So who are some of those key players that are coming back in '97 um, from that 10-0 team? That you're leading into the year.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, the guys that made the most noise, if you will, uh, in the '96 season, the Floyd combination,
Mm-hmm.
Antoine and Anthony both coming back. Antoine being a senior and Anthony being a junior, um, and um, Jimmy Lotto,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, uh,
I know Craig Lynn was Craig Lynn.
Craig Lynn, and Bill Ciccarelli
Mm-hmm.
were our tight ends. And that was another big deal, especially in our offense, having two bookend tight ends back that could, gives you the balance of going either way, and um, and throwing them the ball.
Yeah.
Craig Lynn emerged as one of our top receivers.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, Certainly that '97 year. Um, Ollie Hightower,
Mm-hmm.
um, 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 Farina. I want to say there was a number of linemen.
So some of the names that I remember,
Bill
yeah. So you
Bugsovich.
had Bugsovich, Fuller, right? Fuller would have been at least a defensive lineman,
Yes, yes,
probably. I think offense as well.
yes. And thinking, recollecting back, we had to send Fuller didn't want to play. He didn't want to play his senior year. He just
And that was '98 because that's when I start coming into freshman. So '98, I remember that. I don't want to say drama, but I remember that conversation about him not. What do you
Yeah,
just
we sent a group of kids. He
really?
didn't show up for doubles one time, and we sent a group, and they talked him in there. I mean, he wasn't sour or anything. I think he was just tired of it and
Yeah.
the grind, and um, but he ended up, you know,
Oh yeah,
emerging as really
yeah,
a great player for
yeah.
us.
Joe Harris.
Joe Harris, as I mentioned, Bill Bugsovich,
Yeah,
um, who played 10 times over his head in size.
yeah.
Um, uh,
So you got a lot of.
Craig Lynn's brother,
Yep.
um, Danny, um, uh, big part of the success of that team. Troy Cochran was a running back. Teuton Smith. Um, and I'm sure that there's name after name that I wish I had the senior group in front of me, uh, but yeah, uh, really a great start to return into the year and with a lot of promise.
Yeah. And so third year with Antoine, right? Did that was that stretching you as a coach, knowing the talent you had there Was it stretching you to develop the passing game, to add new wrinkles, having some real threats, really across the board, not
Oh,
just Antoine and Anthony, but um, did that stretch you as a coach to add more tools to your tool bag to give them more opportunities?
oh, absolutely. I mean, we went from, as I mentioned, the two tight ends to, from a lot of tight and stack type of things, kept them in the offense. But as you say, we were able to expand and go um, uh, some more spread,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
open up the offense and do some things. Now, again, um, I'm not telling you that um, we went all out as far as opening it up. I mean, our identity was still, you know, we want to run off tackle, we want to run toss, we want to run play action, but it did give us the ability to open up the offense, do some things with formation and motion, and uh, get our outside people uh, a bit more involved.
Looking at today's game, right? Everybody's in the gun, and everybody that's a lot of the look you get, right? I think a really dangerous team, even at this point in time, is somebody who can get up, get in the eye, or a quarterback under center, whatever the formation is, have a real threat of running through your face mask, but then also have a threat of hitting you with play action or a three step, because now you don't know what to play for. You don't know, and obviously the spread offense has developed so much more than the transitional period. But you know, there's really as a defensive coordinator, there's a lot of threat in that.
There's no question about it. And we dabbled in that direction, ended up in that completely in that direction. Um, when as we developed into Brad's years,
Mm-hmm.
um, and but with Antoine, I mean, as I said earlier, um, here's a kid in 3 years that threw 50 some touchdown passes.
Yeah.
I mean, and you compare that to where we came from, as far as our quarterback and our offense, and um, there is a total evolution, and it was all based on the abilities of the kid that was under center.
Sure. And I think that's, sometimes I don't want to say lazy, but sometimes coaches maybe take the easy way out and maybe don't stretch themselves,
Right.
right? Say, hey, this is the system and this is what we do, and there's a time and a place for that. But by the same token, when you have opportunity to really change a little bit within your philosophy, um, you have to.
And you're 100% right. And if you look back at that time, okay, there was the wing T teams,
Hmm.
that were, and we'll talk about that uh, sooner than later. I mean, what Dave Hartman was doing at Fitch, um, it, where those guys, this is what we are, this is what we do. Okay, now we're going to really be good at it. Now
Hmm.
you stop it. Okay, and that was really tough to prepare for. Okay, now the downside of that was the inflexibility of that type of offense.
Yeah.
Okay, it's good, and it's really really tough to prepare against. Um, but you get an inflow of different types of kids that require maybe or are used to different types of skills. Um, and you're somewhat limited.
Yeah. No, yeah,
You're
definitely.
locked into it.
Right. Right. And that's the challenging part of coaching and dealing with any situation where you're the leader of it um is it easier for me to change, for me to adjust, or do I impose my will and have and knowing the nuance between the two of which is the right decision.
Right. And that's the difference between high school and college football. The college coach recruits to his comfort level.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. I mean, he's bringing in kids that are going to be suited to his offense and defensive philosophy. Whereas in high school, you get what you get.
Yeah.
Okay. Now your feeder schools can be mirroring what you do, but the type of athlete that you get, I mean, again, I don't think there's a bigger telltale than the evolution of the quarterback uh, at our place.
Mhm.
I mean, we went from, you know, uh, uh, running the football and occasionally pulling it and throwing it to um, uh, being able to utilize the quarterback as um, not only a game manager, but also as a runner
Yeah.
and a play action thrower, but not running West Coast offense.
Sure. Sure.
Okay, um, and again evolving even further that in doing that again not necessarily running a West Coast offense, but being able to jump into that look,
Mhm.
okay, which again I could recall Dan Palani when he was coaching at Boardman. We were at a clinic and he was talking about how tough it was to prepare for Chaney because of the multiple formations in motion and things that we were throwing at him, and again that that was a tribute to the type of kid that we had and we were getting.
Yeah.
So
What kind of local recognition or expectations, and I know you didn't necessarily pay too much attention to that, but there had to be coming off the 10-0 season, the local news, Valley Playbook, people at the time, um, had to have you at the tops of their list in terms of expectations. What do you remember anything about that going into the season?
yeah, we did, we never put a lot of stock in any of that. I mean, it was they were more than gracious, if you will, or respectful, um, and we always gave time to uh, anyone that would come out or anyone that would lead to positive image on our program, our kids. Um, but and certainly your Uncle Pat was being a Chaney guy. He was we were his favorite son, so to speak, um, and that led a lot of attention in our direction. That he headlined that, but um, yeah, I mean, we'd go and throw our lives around at the Lions Club just like everybody else,
Right.
and but our message was always the same. Um, we're going to try to get our kids to play as hard as they can, uh, believe in the program, and let the chips fall where they may. And that's how we went around doing our business.
Do you was it ever a challenge when you have guys that are so successful um and had some success to keep them hungry?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we had uh, on that team. Well, first, you gotta set of brothers, and I don't mean to lay all the success on in their laps, but you have two brothers that are two Division I college recruits,
Mhm.
and um, one ends up going to Penn State, and the other one is an All-American at Louisville. And with that, there's gonna be a lot of anticipation, a lot of expectation. So, um, but what the kids I think recognize and appreciate is, um, I recall an article in the Vindicator saying that are referring to someone that we were one dimensional with the Floyds.
Mhm.
Um, uh, and taking exception to that because there was a whole cast there. I
Yeah.
mean, and our kids, anytime a microphone or dictaphone, came under my nose, it was never, well, you know, this kid, this kid, this kid, this kid. It was always, talking in terms of team, and the kids really appreciate that.
Yeah.
They would, kids are kids. They want to see their name in the paper. They want to hear their name on the news. They want to see a highlight of their run, tackle, interception, whatever. But okay, um, I think everyone understood that no one was ever bigger than the team.
Mhm. And the reason I kind of asked that question is because just to kind of wrap this section up was, now that's at the other end of the spectrum, right? The notoriety, the press, whether it's recognized professional press or individuals who kind of do something on their own through social media platforms. um how do you think that dynamic changes from you know almost 30 years ago to today, where it was very limited, your press clippings, right? It was a local newspaper, maybe regional. You had the Valley Playbook, which was a big deal for our area. um but now it's everywhere.
Yeah.
So how do you, if you were dealing with some of that leading into this season, how do you think you might handle that? Or what do you think the difference might be in today's terms?
I don't know. I guess my best answer to that would be that where today is a world that is pretty alien to me. I
Yeah.
mean, I I quite don't get it. I mean, there's you've heard me say this a lot, and I have said this a lot, that I never wanted to be in a situation where I had to look down on to see where I was.
Hmm.
Uh, what the logo on my staff shirt said. Um, uh, and the difference I think that we're talking about is it never wanted to be anywhere else but Chaney for me. Um, and I expected that our kids felt the same way,
Hmm.
you know. Um, and I don't know that kids today are like loyal. I mean, it's
Hmm.
like it's an opportunity. It's a place to um, kind of hone their skills.
Hmm.
Um, but in it, and this is speculation, it would seem to me that you don't get that um, push by coaches anymore. Coaches are managing uh, that attitude now,
Hmm.
and that's what's really alien to me. Like I said, you know, our kids, because of racial balance and interdistrict transfer um, uh, during that time, they bought into Chaney. They were loyal to Chaney. And I think to this day, 30 years later, that you sit down an Anthony Floyd and um, uh, an Antoine Floyd, Craig Lynn, or whoever, and Bill Bugsovich, and you talk about Chaney, that means something to them. I mean,
Mhm.
Chaney High School means something. Their association in our program and being part of that school, being part of that program, was a big deal. And I'm just not so sure that that's the case today. Now, I might be 100% off base, but that's what I think. It was easy for me to sell our product because of what I thought, what I believed, and the kids bought into it.